The main character, MC, is a normal, jobless worker in contemporary Korea, struggling with financial difficulties. One day, he mysteriously gets resurrected into the Joseon dynasty, discovering that he is now a prince named Jinseong Daegun. Initially disbelieving and confused, he comes to accept his new life and the privileges that come with being a prince, including wealth. Despite the perks, he feels bored due to the lack of entertainment compared to the 21st century. One day, he's invited for a drink by his brother, and during a hunting trip, a dangerous incident occurs. The king saves him, and he kills the horse that ran away, leaving its owner in a dangerous situation. The king treats him like family, challenging the MC's preconceptions about historical figures. Upon returning home, Jinseong couldn't believe himself when he discovered that he is married to a beautiful woman named Yeol Shin, whom he had not even dated before in his entire life. They share a somewhat awkward and amusing first night together and woke up eating together. While eating, he thinks highly of himself for having such a beautiful wife, and Shin was to attend the queen. During her travel, the MC remembers his determination to change history to prevent his wife from facing exile, and living a lonely life as queen for only 7 days. The MC reflects on the possibility of changing history, particularly regarding his brother's tyrant reputation. The MC decides to help the king and prevent him from becoming a tyrant, altering the course of history to ensure a better future. When the MC and his wife go to see the king's wife, Sin Yeon Sangun's queen, asked if there was anything they needed. The MC replied, "No, we came for a walk with my wife, and I also want to see my family members." While the MC was talking, Yeol Shin interrupted and said, "Didn't you come to visit the king?" Then he went to visit the king. The queen said to Shin, "Hasn't he changed?" After Shin mentioned that when they slept together, the prince's hot breath was on her neck and she couldn't sleep, she revealed that she didn't receive any sex education. In Korean history, boys and girls were not allowed to sit together and learn about sex education after the age of 7. So, the queen gave a porn book to Shin and told her to read it. When Jinseong visited the king, the generals were asking the king to behave properly because the kingdom's people couldn't even eat while he was playing and hunting with his brother. They advised him to learn in the morning, afternoon, evening, and before bed. After they left, Jinseong went to visit the king, who was also happy. Jinseong told the king that stress is the mother of all causes and that he needs to relieve some stress. He dragged the king to go horse riding. While they were eating, the general came shouting, "Your Highness, what are you doing, playing and eating beef? Please be mindful that there are people who can't even eat." The king shouted back, "That's enough." He turned to the history writer and asked, "Did you write that the general was shouting at me?" The writer replied, "I can't disclose that information. It's something the generals planned." This made the king fall silent, and they dragged him away. When Jinseong was drunk, he shouted at the generals, "It's not only the king's fault, it's also your fault. You wrote the government examination and came for this position, right?" The head general became enraged and shouted back, unable to find the right words. The king suddenly stopped the general and they silently left the king's place. After the incident happened, the generals were all talking that my 10 years' worth of problems have now been placed on the king's head. Then, a general talked to the head general, and Jinseong talked about them. The head general replied, "When did the feared puppy get brave? We must teach him a lesson and make him know his place." After that, Jinseong went to his house where his wife was waiting for him with dinner. Jinseong asked about the king's background, and Shin replied that it was a tragic past. The first king had a concubine, and she gave birth to Yeon Sungun. After the king, he visited other concubines, which led to a fight between the former king and queen. The queen unintentionally scarred the king's face by seeing his grand queen, the former king's mother. As a result, the queen was exiled from the kingdom and executed in a poisonous manner. The current king, Yeon Sungun, doesn't know all of this, but he knows everything after his mother died. The former king ordered not to talk about the queen. After 100 years, when he died, this rule still remains. Even though the king has power, he can't use it all because of the generals. The next day, all the generals requested punishment for his brother for talking harshly to their seniors and breaking their trust. The king denied it, asking, "Did you threaten the generals?" They replied, "We didn't threaten. We humbly told them about the people's conditions." The king denied it and asked, "You were the ones who told me to show mercy, so why didn't you see that?" They responded, "We wanted to give punishment as a warning, so he doesn't speak rudely." After that, the king shouted, "If that's all you want, then I'll put him in the dungeon and execute him. Is that enough?" Then, all the generals apologized and left the place. Afterward, the king visited his former dancer concubine to share the details of everything that had transpired. The next day, Joseon became aware of the situation but felt powerless due to his lack of knowledge. He approached the king and expressed his desire to learn and be assigned a teacher so that he could protect the king and their family. The king consulted the generals, and they recommended a tutor named Lee Jangan, who had once been exiled from the royal court for filing complaints against them. Reluctantly, he agreed to tutor Joseon. During one of their lessons, when the tutor introduced intermediate-level content, Joseon expressed his wish to start from the basics. Frustrated, the tutor stormed outside and exclaimed why he had to deal with such a situation. Later that night, the king secretly visited Lim Seung-jae's father, Lim Sa-hong, to prepare some lists. However, Lim Seung-jae had been exiled and couldn't attend the court. The king inquired about the lists, and Lim Sa-hong presented a book list to him. The following day, Joseon diligently learned the language of the letters and successfully made changes. He then invited his wife, Shin, to play a game. However, she tested him to ensure he didn't slack off. Joseon learned the words correctly, and they played a modern version constructed with wooden block pieces, creating a tower without it falling. Those who caused the block to fall faced punishment. It was an enjoyable experience. Just as the game concluded, the tutor arrived and witnessed Joseon playing. The conversation drifted to the past kings who had killed their own brothers to ascend the throne. Yeonsangun, the current king, had even slain his own nephew. Tutor questioned himself whether he was a fool or merely pretending. After he tested Joseon, he said to take classes today is outside, so they went outside and went to the farm. The teacher asked Joseon, "What do you see in farming?" He replied, "It's tiring." The teacher then replied, "There's a saying that when someone doesn't study, they will become a farmer." Joseon countered, "What is the use of studying? Those generals studied and still ended up in politics badly." The teacher responded, "Studying is just acquiring knowledge." After that, he visited the farmers, who greeted him warmly. Joseon instructed his servant, Doksun, to give his watermelon to the farmers. He said, "The king gave me 15, so give 1 to each of these farmers and keep 5 for yourselves to share with your families." Watermelons were rare and costly in those days, so eating and sharing them with the farmers was a generous act. In the following days, Joseon introduced his game to the king, and his wife attended a test conducted by the Grand Queen Inso. She was nervous, and Joseon comforted her by kissing her forehead. She also passed the test and waited for him. Joseon played with the king and a former dancer. Later in the evening, his wife discovered that he had been playing with the concubine. She cried and accused him of infidelity. Joseon consoled her, assuring her that he would not leave her. The next morning, feeling bored, Joseon asked for chicken porridge but decided to cook fried chicken instead. He went to the kitchen, where his servant Doksun warned him that a man entering the kitchen would lose his dignity. Joseon retorted, "What use is it for you? You only use it for peeing." Undeterred, Joseon prepared the ingredients for fried chicken and cooked it. He even made extra for his servants. When his wife and everyone took a bite, they exclaimed that it was the best dish they had ever tasted. However, Shin pointed out that it was a bit oily. Joseon suggested that pickled radish would pair well with it, but realized he had forgotten to mention it. Then, he wanted to write a quote, but he didn't have any ideas. So, he went to the streets and started thinking. Suddenly, he spotted his servant girl, Jongam, going for laundry. He joined her and observed what they were doing with black charcoal to wash clothes. He mentioned that it could cause harm but could also be used to make soap. After that, he began the soap-making process. While he was working, he noticed his servant, Doksun, watching Jongam. Jinseong asked Doksun if he liked her, but Doksun replied that he didn't. Jinseong then mentioned that Jongam was quite famous on the street and that another man had even proposed to her. This angered Doksun, wanting to know who that man was, but Jinseong was just teasing him. Jinseong asked Doksun to help him with making the soap. Once it was completed, Doksun gave it to Jongam, stating that he didn't want to hold her hand with wounded hands, so she should use it. He also mentioned that if she completed the task, she could ask for as much as she wanted. He made a gesture in front of everyone. Meanwhile, the generals were teaching the king their generational methods and emphasizing the importance of listening carefully. However, the king didn't pay proper attention. When Jinseong came to meet the king, he rushed to see his brother. The generals tried to tell him that it was important, and Jinseong mentioned that he shouldn't be playing with his brother, as he was not a paper king and had responsibilities. However, Yeon Sangun didn't care and stated that if the grand princes were here, he would have to go. Then he left. The head general angrily looked at the king because he couldn't manipulate him. Later, Jinseong gave the king a gift of fried chicken and a quote he had written about the hard-working people in the laundry. However, when the king read it, he misunderstood it as a political criticism, which further fueled the grudges of the royal court and generals towards Jinseong. The king instructed his servant to post the quote in all areas of the country and royal court. The next morning, Shin expressed her desire to visit a temple with the queen, and Jinseong decided to join them. They went to a famous temple in the modern world, and Jinseong was in awe. Suddenly, the queen received news that her son had contracted chickenpox. She fell unconscious upon hearing this. In the 18th century, there was no vaccine for chickenpox, so it was considered highly dangerous. They could only rely on shamans for treatment. Jinseong hurried to his brother, Yeon Sangun, who was performing a Korean dance with a sword to ward off harmful spirits. Jinseong tried to stop him, but in the process, he accidentally got slashed on his nose by the sword. He hugged his brother and calmed him down. The king cried and lamented why it had to happen to his brother, as he had already lost his mother and 7 sons. He expressed his sorrow to Jinseong. After Jinseong calmed him down, the king went to the general's teaching session and apologized for being late. The head general apologized to hear about his son, addressing him as "My lord." The king stated that they didn't have time now and needed to discuss chickenpox. The general blamed the king, stating that the chickenpox was a result of his failure to perform the sejib correctly, leading to the attack on his son. The king shouted that it was only because of him that his son got it. The general accused the king of not caring about the people, which was why the disease had attacked. The king became angered and shouted, but after calming down, the general said that the king should never get angry, as it goes against their teachings. The generals continued to blame him, and in the end, the head general stated that the grand prince had touched his body, even though he was his brother. A king's body should not be easily touched, according to the general. The other generals agreed and suggested that the grand prince should be punished. The king shouted once again, stating that the grand prince was just hugging a family member. He questioned why there was so much grudge towards the grand prince, especially when he had asked them to teach him about showing mercy. The king then shouted for everyone to leave, but nobody moved an inch. All the generals bowed their heads, indicating a reconsideration of their actions. The king silently realized that he had shown them too much of his soft side and decided to plan the killing of a general at an upcoming event. This particular general was the one who had played a role in executing the king's mother. Meanwhile, Jinseong went to research and find a way to prevent chickenpox. He visited the medical hall and found a young girl named Jangum, who was studying how to prevent chickenpox. He knew that she was famous for her medical knowledge in history. They decided to work together to find a solution. Jinseong approached one of the king's men and asked for assistance, but unfortunately, the man had passed away, leaving his son behind. Jinseong showed the man's son his father's books and journals. While they were reading, Jinseong realized that the writings were 40 years old, and they both entered the inn to continue their research. They read numerous medical logs throughout the night. Jangum eventually fell asleep, apologizing for dozing off. Jinseong reassured her that it was okay and continued reading. However, he came across a section written in Sanskrit, so he took the book and gave it to his wife to pass on to a monk for translation. Suddenly, Jinseong fell unconscious and had a dream. In his dream, his mother fell sick in a hospital during his high school graduation. He cried and told her that it was okay, she could come to his college graduation. He spoke in his sleep, pleading for his mother not to leave him. When he woke up, the book had been translated. As he read it, he discovered something intriguing: butchers were immune to chickenpox. Jangum confirmed that it was true and revealed that her father was a butcher. Jinseong decided to visit his father to gather more details, but Deoxon interrupted, stating that butchers were lowly people and couldn't be affected by such diseases. Jinseong punched Deoxon and told him to go away. After Jinseong asked the butcher about chickenpox-infected beef, the butcher confirmed that they sometimes cut beef infected with chickenpox and sell it at a low price. People were afraid to buy it, so they ended up consuming it themselves without caring about the risks as long as they could survive. Jinseong then inquired about where he could buy chickenpox-infected cows, and went to the farmer who had previously received watermelons from him. The farmers were worried about how to sell a cow infected with chickenpox. Jinseong bought the cow with full payment, considering it a treasure. He took the cow to his house and that night invited Jang Geum to his house to create a vaccine. They tested the vaccine on the cow and, after confirming its effectiveness, Jinseong informed his servants. However, they didn't believe him. So, he took the vaccine himself as an example. Later, when his wife saw this, she also took the vaccine, and Jang Geum followed suit. After 2 days, nothing happened to them, and the cow was cured as well. Doksun searched and asked the shamans about the truth, but they mocked him, claiming they had never heard of such a thing. In frustration, Jinseong forcefully vaccinated Doksun. As rumors spread, everyone believed that Jinseong had abused his servants and his wife. The rumors reached the generals, who decided to investigate the matter and confirm the rumors to be true. The head general held a strong grudge and immediately reported the situation to the king. The king dismissed the generals, but the head general refused to leave, demanding proper answers. This angered the king, as the head general had already met with the Grand Prince and reported without consulting him. Prior to this, the king had already informed the Grand Prince not to attend the upcoming festival. Jinseong accepted this, knowing what would happen. He thought to himself that everything was happening too quickly, leading to the grand coup d'état. The king informed the head general that the punishment for the Grand Prince, Jinseong, would take place the next day and asked if it was acceptable. The general silently agreed and left. On the night before the festival, the king visited former Inspector Lim Sa-hong to inquire about how his mother died and what had happened. Lim Sa-hong revealed that his mother had been executed by poison to scar the king's face. And for that, the king asked every general to vote. Some generals voted against the head general, resulting in their exile for mistreatment. One of those individuals was Lim Sa-hong, and the head general confirmed that the decision was correct. The king then instructed Inspector Lee Se-jua to make her statement. However, Lee Se-hong suddenly stopped while speaking, and the king shouted, "Haven't I told you to tell everything?" In response, Lee Se-jua revealed that before the king's mother died, she had cried and asked to see her son one last time. However, Lee Se-jua did not allow it and made her drink poison. The king already knew this information, but hearing it before the festival infuriated him. The next day was the festival, and every general and the king were happily drinking. The other generals forced Lee Se-jua to sing a fortune for the king, and he wished the king loudly. After hearing this, the king poured drinks for every inspector, saying they could drink without worry since it was a happy day. However, he glared at Lee Se-jua. Meanwhile, in the Grand Prince's house, Jinseong was bored and waiting for his tutor. Suddenly, a young child wanted to meet Jinseong. When Jinseong asked who the child was, the child ran towards him, crying. It was the daughter of a farmer named Gaetong. Gaetong asked for help, explaining that her father had been beaten to death by their landlord. She recounted the details, mentioning that when her father was working under the scorching sun, he took a rest in the shade of a tree. Suddenly, the landlord appeared and started beating him without any reason, accusing him of being lazy. Upon hearing the name Doksun, Jinseong remembered that he was famous and an upper-class man who didn't work and behaved like an asshole. Enraged by this information, Jinseong went to Gaetong's house. There, he witnessed Gaetong's mother pleading for her husband's release, but Minterek kicked her away and continued beating him in front of everyone. Jinseong approached them and asked what had happened. Minterek responded rudely, and Doksun shouted that Jinseong was the king's brother. Jinseong intervened, provoking Minterek to attack him. Minterek asked about Jinseong's family background, and Jinseong revealed that he was from the royal family. He then asked Doksun what would happen if someone touched the royal family. Doksun replied that no sane person would ever dare touch the royal family, to which Jinseong calmly responded, "Yes, the more the fire grows, the more attention it attracts." He then asked Doksun to call a doctor, while Minterek quickly called the police, accusing Jinseong of spreading false claims about his royalty. Jinseong remained calm, stating that the more the fire spread, the more attention it would receive. He sat down and asked Doksun to call a doctor, while he himself was taken to prison. In this scenario, the king and generals were happily celebrating a festival while drinking. The king invited head general Manhwa and Lee Sejua to sit beside him and poured drinks for them. Manhwa apologized for his previous behavior when he went too far in seeking punishment for Jinseong. The king accepted the apology but whispered to them, questioning why they didn't apologize for what happened to his mother. This revelation shocked both Manhwa and Lee Sejua. Suddenly, Lee Sejua attempted to run away but slipped, causing him to drop his drink and tear the king's dress. Now, the king turned to Manhwa and questioned him about the incident on the festival day. In front of everyone, Lee Sejua threw away the drink given by the king and touched him with his filthy hand. This prompted the king to suggest giving him a punishment. Manhwa, shocked, argued that it was because he was drunk and even family members were not allowed to touch the king. However, the support of everyone present leaned towards General Lee Sejua. As a result, the king called off the festival and ordered an interrogation of Lee Sejua, summoning all the generals to a meeting. Meanwhile, in prison, Jinseong awaited Doksun while the cops discussed the truth of his identity as the Grand Prince. One cop expressed disbelief, claiming it couldn't be true and pointing out that the one who complained was from the Lee family. They also mentioned that Jinseong's tutor was famous as a scholar. On the king's side, the interrogation of Lee Sejua revealed his crimes. He admitted to being weak when it came to alcohol and being unable to refuse the king's offer. Another general, who was part of the interrogation, promised to inform the king about this. As the king's supporters grew, fueled by his grudge against his deceased mother, they deemed Lee Sejua's actions as a significant sin that warranted exile. While discussing what to do with the head general who was not properly performing his job, the king's eunuch whispered something in the king's ear. When the other general inquired, the king dismissed it, claiming it was nothing. They shifted the conversation to the state of the country, trying to change the subject. The king then revealed that his brother had been the victim of a crime, shocking everyone. This allowed them to shift the blame onto the Grand Prince. In the midst of all this, Jinseong's tutor and wife arrived and confirmed his true identity as the Grand Prince. The cops, realizing their failure, bowed their heads and asked for mercy, admitting their shortcomings in fulfilling their duties. Jinseong, unfazed by their pleas, noticed the bruises on the cop's face and inquired about the cause. The cop explained that he was hit, which angered Jinseong's tutor and wife, assuming it was the cops who had assaulted him. However, the cops denied their involvement and revealed that it was Minterek who had been responsible. Now, the Grand Prince headed towards his house, while on the king's side, they attempted to place the blame on the Grand Prince. And thus, the story reaches a cliffhanger.